Welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast, your home for all things food and pop culture. I am your host, Rich Herrera. Thank you for tuning in. And just a reminder to follow on socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content. A couple of program reminders. I'm doing Top Chef recaps, episodic recaps all season, and it's coming to the close. We only got a couple more episodes left. And also The Bear, season 3, drops all episodes on June 27th. I'll be doing recaps of those. 10 episodes periodically as I can drop them. So make sure to like and follow and subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast player of choice so you know when those are coming out. Joining me once again for the last few episodes here to recap Top Chef is my friend and colleague, Chef Amadeus, who can name ingredients with his eyes closed, ladies and gentlemen. How are you, sir?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful, sir. Very, very wonderful.
So let's get right into it. We're, a couple of episodes away. What'd you think? Give me your real quick thoughts before we dive in. Your amuse bouche review, if you will.
Manny.
I gotta tell you, I beat up on Manny a lot the last couple of episodes. So I'm gonna make a promise right now. I vow not to talk too badly about Manny on today's pod. So yeah, I honestly thought he was gonna slide by again today because man, I got a little frustrated. I'll be honest. How can the cooking be this bad, this deep?
Like I said, and you said it as well. He should have been gone a couple of weeks ago.
Right. But we're not even just talking about Manny. I mean, Dan had a case of the yips, I think, to this
Oh my
episode. And
God.
oh my
Oh my
Lord.
God. If I tell you this, if Manny would have cooked his fish, Dan would have been gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. I think they got tired of seeing Manny undercooking his proteins over and over again. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I really thought I was like, oh my God, man, he's gonna slide by again because Dan's was so not Danny, Dan's was so bad this week. I
Well,
don't.
here's the other thing that I was I thought was interesting when Sarah, yeah, was it Sarah?
Savannah
Uh, yeah,
or
Savannah. When Savannah did her potato, and Manny said, "I can't believe she's gonna do a potato as a main dish."
yeah,
She did it and nailed it.
killed it.
With the story matched her dish.
Oh, her story gave me chill bumps. Well, just listening to her talk about it, I was like,
Her,
ooh, I got some
her,
chill bumps to
her
listen to that story.
story. After her story, everybody was like, "Yeah, she won. Yeah,
Yeah,
she."
yeah.
And then after her, everybody went downhill after her.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody tried to cram a story into the dish instead of really like being introspective and thinking about what is my journey through Top Chef and how am I, how have
And
I grown in Top Chef?
and Manny just like, I'm doing my culture. I'm just whatever they say. Screw that. There's no
Right.
growth. I'm just doing safe because I'm doing this, and he screwed it up.
Yeah, and even Savannah called him out on well, in her confessional called him out on it. It's like, yeah, I'm talking to
Yeah,
Manny and I think he's just kind of slipping back into what's comfortable and I don't think he understands like what this challenge is all about. And he didn't. He was like, no matter how much I grow, you gotta cook from your roots. And okay, I get that, but fit it in within the
yeah,
parameters of the challenge, and he just didn't. And then he messed it up. Like,
yeah.
he
But
messed
he's
up the
talking
dish.
bad about he when he said, "Why are you doing a potato as a main dish?" Here's the thing that I've seen many shows. As soon as someone says, um, "I know how to do this because I grew up doing that," or they say something bad about why are you doing that. Even when I was on the Food Network, the girl that was on the show with me, she was like, "Oh, you're not cooking like us. You're cooking Southern food because you're from the South." I'm like, we all have the same food.
Right,
You
right.
know what I'm saying? She was all about he's you're gonna go home and I'm like, okay. I just sat there like, all right, we'll see what happens. And she was the first one to go home because she was trying to this is what she was doing what is called um she's a can't say that word. She's she was very trying to do too much to get attention on her.
Yeah, yeah.
And like she did a cowboy chili and put it in a raw onion bowl. And then she did Mexican sushi. Like, and you have a Mexican chef judging. So when you're doing these things, just keep in mind you may see somebody doing something you don't know what they're doing. And when I coach wrestling, when I coach high school kids, do your game. Don't look at them and say, "Wow, they doing that's stupid. That's stupid. Why they doing that?" No, no,
Right.
no. Nope. Be focused on what you're doing. Play your game. Don't worry about everybody else. And when Manny said that about why she's doing a potato, I was like, dude, yeah, that's
Yeah.
and this is part of my PTSD. It makes it seem like he's a bully and thinks he's better than her, and I
Yeah.
don't like. I didn't like that from several points of views. But and she stuck to her guns, and I like it. I loved it, and her story when she told her story, it matched the pressure and the heat of the
Yeah.
press. It
So
just
great.
oh
So great. I mean, you talk about growth in the show as a whole. I mean, for the first half of the season, she was just kind of there. And then
right,
at some point, she turned on the turbojets and was
and
this
it
back half of the
clicking.
season. Man, she's the one to beat
She
for
has like
sure,
thirty
for
eight
sure.
thousand dollars, don't you?
Yeah, she's got 38,000. She's got the most overall, well, not most overall wins, but she's got, oh, what did I write down? I think she has like 3 quickfire wins and 2 elimination challenge wins. So 5 overall wins in the competition, and really they all came in these last, 6
Yep.
episodes. So just
It just turned up the gas on that one, and I'm like, "You go, girl,
yeah,
you go, girl."
somewhere
And like I
along the
said,
line,
with
yeah.
Dan, and then with Dan, I just you can feel the frustration in his thought process,
I
in
think
his
Dan,
cooking process.
I don't know what happened today with Dan. Like I said, I think he got a case of the yips. I think in the quick fire, he got his ingredients and he just didn't know what to do with it. So we'll talk about the quick fire in just a second. But he couldn't figure out what to do with his kind of hodgepodge of ingredients. And then in the elimination challenge, he tried to, I guess, improve on a dish that he won on. Like you and Kristen said it best at the end of the episode. You're forcing me to compare your dish you cook now to the dish you cooked earlier that was perfect, and this one's not as perfect. So if you're trying to show me growth, you failed at that because you actually did not grow in that. So he tried to do another smoked walleye dish, and he did
Well,
it
that's the
worse.
same thing with Danny. With Danny with his tea, he like, I wanted to improve on my tea that I did, and it didn't work out.
And
It
clearly
didn't.
he didn't even know what he was doing because he said, "Oh yeah, this is me. I've grown because this is subtle." And everybody at the table was like, "Oh, this is subtle," and it was very bold and in your face.
Yep.
And even he didn't know how to tell his story. And that's and this challenge is coming because this challenge is always one of the last challenges is tell your story of Top Chef in a dish. So you know it's coming, it's happening. And I think for Danny, I think he's kind of sputtering towards the finish line. I think he ran out of recipes. I don't know if he miscalculated the number of recipes he had to do, but he's running out of ideas and of gas. So I don't know. I mean, the
But
final
this is the
four,
wrong time to do it though, because
yeah.
you're like 2 blocks away from the finish line, and you're puttering out, and Laura's gonna turn it up.
Yeah. This is Laura's season to lose for sure.
Yeah,
So,
she's gonna turn this stuff. And as you saw in the preview, somebody was crying, somebody was getting a little emotional,
yeah, 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 yeah.
somebody's getting a little emotional.
So we'll see what happens. So let's get into it. Let's talk about the quickfire challenge. I love this quickfire challenge. It's the blind taste test challenge, and I love it so much because I can't do it, right? Because if you blindfold me and ask me to taste peanut butter, and I'm gonna tell you it's like tahini or something. I'm not good at that job. So I love watching professionals do their thing, and it was pretty impressive. I mean, they were blindfolded and they had to guess 26 ingredients from A to Z, and the one with the most won $5,000. and then they break off into the second part, and the ingredients that they guess correctly, they have to make a dish out of it. So the guest judge is Paul Bartolotta. He's a 4-time nominated and 2-time James Beard Award winner, and a fixture and staple in Milwaukee. He had his restaurant for 30 years. We were just talking before recording the pod about some restaurants in Jacksonville that are closing after 4 or 5 years. To think about a restaurant for 30 years in the same place doing the same thing, that's hats off to him. He's got a pretty big restaurant empire there in Wisconsin, so good for him.
And you know what? Yeah, I tell you this. I know someone else that has a restaurant in Seattle for a very long time, and I think one of the main keys as a business person, they own the building.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, some places in Jacksonville, you get a lease for like 5 years, and the owner sees, oh, you doing well. We're gonna jack your rent up, and it's like, dude,
Yeah.
you jacking the rent up too high. Instead of being, I understand going up on rent a little bit, but when you jack it up where they have to move or they have to shut down, that's just. So I was talking with someone here, and they were saying that they had a lease for like 5 years, and 3 years into it is when they started negotiating their lease. So
Mm,
they have time to either stay there or find another place.
that's smart.
Because if you wait until a year, that year can drag on.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're getting closer and closer. Now you're either forced to either shut down or you're forced to pay an enormous amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like I say, running a restaurant, you have to think long term, not just okay. I got 5 years to do this. Those 5 years will fly by in a blink of an eye.
Yep. Yeah.
So, like I say, I'm sure this restaurant in Milwaukee that he probably owns his building.
Yeah. I mean, 30 years is a long time. I mean, that's longer than most marriages. So good for him.
Yep, yep.
So the blind taste challenge, the quickfire was 2 parts. The blind taste test challenge, the one that guesses the most gets 5K. Then they cook their dish. Winner of that gets 10K and is the overall winner of the quickfire. So it was kind of fun to watch. And Dan and Savannah came in last place with 9 correct guesses. I thought it was kind of funny there because Dan was in his confessional saying, "Man, I got the best palate. I can name all these. I can name all these ingredients," and he comes in last at 9 guesses. I
What
don't.
did I
I
tell you? As soon as they start bragging about, oh, I can do, I can do, I can do,
Yeah.
don't
I mean,
work out that way.
I couldn't tell if he was being sarcastic, like ironically sarcastic, or if he was serious. But I thought the editing was really funny on that.
Yep.
Danny got third place with 13 guesses. Laura finished second with 15, and then Manny, 23 out of 26. The man's got a trained palate. I mean, too bad it doesn't translate to his cooking, but I mean, he's got a palate on him. So I mean, 23
Yeah.
out of 26. That was impressive. And he
Mhm.
gets 5K, and it's his first kind of win in a while. So they take their ingredients that they guess correctly in a very limited pantry and make a dish. So Manny made a salmon crudo with edamame, jalapeno puree, parsley, and gooseberry relish. Savannah made a fried pork chop with faux Caesar and cheddar and horseradish Kalamata olive sauce. Laura did mussel escabeche with umeboshi, anchovies and herbs, rosemary cracker, watermelon and gooseberries. Dan did a grilled flank steak, scrambled eggs with hooks, cheddar and horseradish, red wine and sour cream sauce. And Danny did a grilled flank steak with watermelon and gooseberry jus, okra with parsley, anchovy, and horseradish gremolata. So the top three were Savannah, Laura, and Danny. The judges weighed in saying Savannah, even though her limited pantry, but she did the best with her ingredients. Her pork chop was cooked well. Breading was light, and turns out the Caesar with cheddar cheese is good. So that's kind of interesting. Laura's dish was also good, had herbaceous notes, and its contrast between the mussels and the gooseberries. And Tom loved Danny's weird watermelon A1 sauce. But Gail Simmons wished she could have tasted the ingredients a little bit more. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these ingredients that they got correct didn't really work well together. But they found a way to make it work. The watermelon A1 sauce was kind of an example of that. So what did you notice? What notes did you have when you were watching them cook and trying to make something?
Well, I guess, looking at, the ingredients that they had, um, they did the best they could, especially Dan and Danny. They didn't have the 26, oh, I mean the 15 and all that stuff. I just think at this point they should be more comfortable in the kitchen, and their minds should be rolling on a constant basis. Be more creative with what they have. Um, and Manny, like I said, for him to have that many flavors and not produce something that was a wow factor, that's just, yeah. And then like I said, Dan, my, my he's doing his thing. I mean, to be creative with what you have, that comes that's a skill set on its own. No, you know what? It's not a skill set, because I know a lot of people that don't have a lot and they do very well with that. So I just think that um it could have been done a lot better. But once again, like I always say, that clock gets on your back, that gorilla gets on your back, and your mind gets to racing, and you be like, oh man, run out of time, overthinking, and those type of things. So that, I think that's what happened with this one.
Yeah, so Savannah was the winner by a long shot. This is her third quickfire in a row. Total quickfire winnings is 38,000 now. So
Yeah.
that leaves Manny and Dan at the bottom. And we were talking about it before. He had 23 of the 26 ingredients guessed correctly. He should have put something great out there,
He should have
but
put
he
something
didn't.
that's amazing out there. And because when he won, it was like, oh yeah. And the other one was like, okay, damn, okay, what I'm gonna do with this? But Danny didn't shouldn't have had to think as hard as the rest of them, because you only missing three ingredients.
Yeah, yeah. So they said Manny's felt one dimensional. I think Paul Bartolotti said it's like he just cut the salmon and put it on a plate, didn't even season it. And Tom said he needed to taste the food together when he cooks it, so he'll be able to recognize the problems with it. You're in the this is the thing. I said I wasn't going to say anything bad about Manny, but here we are. He, you're in the top five. Why is Tom still telling you to taste your food as you're cooking? That, as a chef, that should be ingrained in your head. Like that's something you should be doing before you get on Top Chef. That shouldn't be something that you're telling chefs to do at the judges table. Five,
Right.
you're two, 3 wins away from the final. You're in the top five. What are you doing, man? You're just, why are you having to be told to taste your food?
This is why we both said he should have been gone a couple of weeks ago. Once again, like I said, you're taking the place of somebody who really should have been there versus you being there.
Yeah. I mean, look at the people that have gone home before him. Rosica, Sue, all these like creative, Amanda, all the Michelle, all these creative, chefs have gone before him, and he's still putting out all this like just bland, safe food. I don't get
That,
it.
like I said, he's taking the same thing we said about the unknown guy, that he took the spot of somebody who could have did a lot better than he did. And I'm sure, I guess, I don't know, but I can't speak for them, but I'll be like, dude, I could have did better than that
Yeah.
with that many ingredients. I could have did better than that.
Yeah.
So that's frustrating.
It was really frustrating to watch. This deep in the competition, every dish, when you're in the top five at this point, every dish you make needs to be a finale dish, and even in
Right.
the quick fire. And so I just don't understand how some people are just like phoning it in right now still.
Yep.
Um, Dan had an uncharacteristically bad night. He admits that his dish was a train wreck. I mean, he was saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna make steak and scrambled eggs. There's still shells in the egg." I mean, he had a really bad quick fire. And then they said it's had a really bad smell. It had an unpalatable smell. Like I don't even know what that was, but that's got to be crazy, man. I mean, everybody had a good laugh about it, but that puts you in a very precarious situation when it comes to the elimination challenge. If you find yourself on the bottom and you had this train wreck of a quick fire, this is why I thought, oh no, Dan's going home because his
You know
elimination
what?
dish wasn't that
I'm
great
with you
either.
on that. I said the same thing. I like, damn, Dan, come on, dude. But like I said, you know, there's no middle now.
Yeah.
So
Well, he
you
wouldn't have
either
even
gonna
been in the middle. He still would have been in the bottom with what he was making.
well, I think that like say same thing with Manny. Dude, you messed you you royally screwed up a dish.
Yeah.
You royally screwed up. His Dan's may have been bad, but at least it was cooked.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Did you see the look on Tom's face when one of the judges said, "Oh, this is cooked perfectly. This is awesome." Tom like, "What?
So I was like, "What? Are you
What?"
eating the same fish I am? Because clearly, sir, you are not. You are." eh,
But like he said, two of the dishes were cooked perfectly. The rest of them were raw.
Yeah, it was very inconsistent across the table. So we'll talk about that here in a second too. So yeah, speaking of which, let's get to the elimination challenge. So we talked earlier, the challenge is create a dish, make a dish that demonstrates how you've grown since the start of the competition. So I thought it was kind of interesting. Kristen asked the chefs. She said, "Hey, I tend to work better when there's a tight box to work within." And then she asked the chefs, how well do you cook having no parameters at all? And everybody's like, "Oh, it's difficult." And I'm like, this is the third challenge now where it was just cook what you want. You should by now be in the mindset of, okay, I've done this twice already. I can be in that mindset again. Um, so I'm kind of like, how can you still find it difficult to cook creatively without parameters, and you've already done it twice, at least twice?
Yeah, Joe. Act like you've been to the brunch before.
With the tabletop
Well,
challenge and the
both
architect
times they were very
challenge.
yeah, but both times they were very uncomfortable doing that. But if I were in that shoe and they said, I'm the opposite. If you tell me, just cook me something, I'm I'm good with that because you're not telling me, put me in a box and saying, cook a fish dish, cook a salmon, I'm gonna cook a steak, cook chicken, use these four ingredients. It's like, go cook me something that would remind you of your growth. And for me, when I'm cooking, I normally don't do the same dish twice. And if I do, it's elevated just a little bit more because I've learned something from, or the next time I do it, I'm gonna do this, 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 and this. Um, and I try to be like one of these uh, smart learning computers where the more they use it, the more it learns itself. So me, while I'm cooking, I'm already thinking about another dish to cook. When I middle that one, I got another one I want to cook, and that's because I've worked with some chefs that kind of put me through that motion of, okay, you did that, you can't do that anymore. Do this, and then when you do that, they're like, all right, cool, that's cool and all. And that, I mean, I was working at the convention center, and I was always making vegetarian dishes, and I put veggies on top of rice. The chef's like, okay, cool, don't use rice now. What? No
Yeah.
rice. Use something else. Or he'll take a vegetable from me and say, you can't use a carrot. You can't, and it would always push me, push me, push me. But that's what some of these chefs are missing today, pushing their cooks. You keeping them in the box. Let them go out of the box. If they mess up, it's okay because it's not in the box.
Yeah.
Let's see what you can do with that. Like Tom said, you had a good miss.
Yeah.
Let your cooks miss and say, dude, that was a good miss. Need to tweak a little bit more, but it's a good try anyway. That's
Yeah.
what's missing across this industry, and that's why some chefs can't be on their own because they're so used to being told what to do.
Right. Right. So they were doing their shopping, and I think everybody during the shop were still trying to like figure out what to do. Even after the shopping is when Savannah figured out, okay, I'm gonna do this potato dish. Like overnight, she was thinking about it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna do this potato dish, and then everybody else just kind of was like, "Ah, I don't know what to do. Dan was trying to figure out what components to take from the different challenges and try to make a through line through it. Laura kind of had a idea that she learned to edit herself through the course of being on Top Chef. Um, yeah, so I thought it was interesting to see how they were trying to figure out what they were going to do. So talking about the meal service, Savannah goes first. She decided on a potato pave, burnt onion and cherry jam, with a chicken sauce reduction. That potato pave looked great. I mean, it was very kind of intense when she popped it out of the hotel pan there, and I was like, oh man, I hope it forms. It's like a scallop potato turned up to 11. Really is what a
Yep.
potato pave is. But it looked really great, and it took guts to do that. I mean, you're basically kind of taking a side dish and deciding to make it the star. And the story, man, talking about just like, look, the everything you need to make a dish is in a potato, just needed heat and pressure. And that's how she found herself in this show, that she has all the skills needed to win this game. And all it takes was heat and pressure that Top Chef provided. And I heard that story. I
Perfect.
rewound it, watched it again, and I got goosebumps just because what a great way to sell that dish. And this is the part of the show I like too, is not only do you have to be a good chef and a good cook, but you got to be a good storyteller. You got to make people fall in love with you so they love the food. And half of selling is selling yourself. And I think Savannah did a great job with that right out of the gate.
He
With
did.
it was so great. What were your thoughts on that?
Same as yours. Like, wow. I mean, if you look at the judges' reaction, they were like, nailed it.
Yeah.
It went with her dish. Her dish went with the story. And here's the thing: what made her whole piece great. The story went with the dish. The dish went with the story. The judges saw her in that dish, so they knew what it takes to win, heat and pressure. And Tom and it was like, you're right. I mean, she nailed it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing to say. She nailed it.
Y- Yep, she understood it, and the judges picked up on it right away. Everybody at the table was stunned, and
And they
the
were
and the
like, it
dish looked
tastes.
great.
They were like, it even tastes better now that they heard the story because it matched.
That's exactly right, and that's part of the storytelling aspect of this competition is, tell the story behind your food, make the judges understand where you were coming from so that they know what to look for. Tell them the story of your food so that they you know see what's happening. My cat's coming into the podcast again. So Manny was up next. He made a snapper a la Vera Cruzano with a creamy potato and saltines. Now this is a dish they cut to an earlier episode where he said, "Oh, I should have made this particular dish that he made tonight." He said, "Man, I can cook that with my eyes closed." And he screwed it up, man. We were talking about it just a second ago. Paul Bartolotta said he had a beautifully cooked fish. Tom looked at him like, what? How do you have perfectly cooked fish? Mine is raw. And a couple of
Yep.
other, and everybody started looking at each other. How's your? Oh yeah, mine's cooked fine. No, mine's raw too. I mean, it was all inconsistent. But Gail appreciates that he showed them something personal. But did he fit the dish to the story or the story to the dish? And he was trying to cram a round peg in a square hole. And look, you could have made something up and they wouldn't have known. But you have to tie it together, right? And he just didn't do that. And it's the second cook in a row where he did not cook his proteins. I'm like, man, what like what are you doing, man? So,
Yeah.
thoughts on Manny's dish?
he he's become very it's like you say, he ran out of gas. He started off strong, and then he started dwindling down, and I felt bad for the people that left because, like, dude, man, he should have been gone, not these people.
Y-
What's
Yeah. Yeah, like
so
what I was saying, like think about the people that left before him. Like think of what Rossica could have done in this challenge, or think
Michelle
about
could have
what
done.
Michelle could have done, or Sue could have done.
Sue. Oh
You
yeah.
know, just I was like, oh my gosh. But his 9 lives finally caught up with him on this one. But let's talk about Danny for a minute. Danny made a soba chow mushroom broth and a mushroom puree and cod. Um, Danny said his dish was subtle. We talked about this. He said it was subtle, but Tom's like, no, kind of like the same way he looked at Paul when he said his fish was cooked perfectly. He's like,
Right.
what do you? This is not subtle. Um, there was some restraint. Danny was trying to sell it. Oh yeah, I showed some restraint, but it's not subtle. But it was a good. They said it was a good dish, and like you said, it was a good miss. I think Danny kind of didn't know what to do with this challenge either. And he's a technician, man. He's great, and Manny is great too at what he does at home. But I think sometimes the show gets the best of you. Like you can be a good chef at home, but I think sometimes the pressure of cooking in a top chef type environment, people can't improv well, or people when you get ingredients that don't go well together, can't really think of what to do with them, and it's like you haven't cooked before, right? But you haven't cooked in that type of situation before, and dishes that you create on this show are dishes you probably never would have thought of outside of the show, and I kind of think that's where Manny and Danny and Dan were tonight.
Well, like I said, that gorilla is no joke. Between time, pressure, heat, that gorilla is on your back, and you got to carry that. And it sometimes you get through it, sometimes it just slows you down, and it just wears you down, and you just. And I think that's what's going on right now with Manny, Danny, and Dan. It's like that gorilla's on their back because they're like they're great chefs, but it's like brain fart.
Yeah,
Poop,
yeah,
just because after they get done, they when they get done and turn it in, they go back and be like, man, I should have did this, 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 and this. So they know what they're doing, what they should have done, but that gorilla got on their back, and they just like, let me just help me send this out. Hope it's done. Hope it's X, Y, Z. But as you can tell, did not work out that way. Even Dan said, the time got away from him with the smoke trout.
yep. So let's talk about Dan. He tried to recreate his smoked walleye dish, but do it differently. So he did a smoked walleye with potato dumpling and lemongrass, turmeric, and brown butter emulsion. Gail called the story and the dish muddled, and Tom called it an identity crisis. You want to show your growth in the show. He should probably not have tried to recreate his winning dish, because it was already good. Like he could have gone the route like Dan was, and or Danny did, and say, okay, I did this poorly. I need to do it better and show that I could do it better. Except Danny didn't do that either. But he tried to create something that was already great, and Kristen forced Kristen to think about that other dish as she was eating this one, and he oversmoked his fish. I mean, he cut them into bite-sized pieces, threw them on the smoker, and just kind of left them there. And unfortunately, just oversmoked it. So,
And he
yeah,
knew that too. He knew it. He
yeah,
knew it. But he had to put something on the plate.
he had to put something on the plate. Laura brings in the end, and she did a lamb Monty with barbacoa sauce. Laura explained that her dish was inspired by her journey of learning how to present dishes with more focus instead of putting too many elements on the plate. Her pasta looked really impressive. I mean, just the way she had to uh, pipe the lamb inside of that pasta and cut them into like
Yep.
individual pieces. It wasn't like a ravioli or any kind of other stuffed pasta that I've ever seen before. It was just this strip of long pasta, long and wide, and she would pipe a little bit on there and then kind of crimp that one up and do it again. That one, I think of all the dishes, Laura's was the one I wanted to taste the most because I love pasta and I like stuffed pasta. So a lamb stuffed pasta in this unique shape and texture, I think would have been delicious. I would have loved to have tasted that. So her presentation was beautiful. And Kristen, pointed out, "Hey, look at all the techniques she was able to pull off on this dish." So what did you think of Laura's there?
I thought it was a great dish. I'm like you. I wanted to try that one. I love the way it was presented. But like I say, I've been a fan of hers. That's why she's on my team.
Yeah. I mean, even though
um,
Laura was kind of pegged as the villain of the season, she came back from Last Chance Kitchen and like kind of Savannah, turned on the afterburners and is cooking with a renewed purpose. So, if I had to call it, I'm thinking the final three because we're at the end of this episode, we're down to Manny gets eliminated. So your final four you're looking at is Danny, Dan, Laura, and Savannah. And if I'm looking at it based on this performance, I'm looking at the top three being Savannah, Laura, and maybe Dan to get there in the top, or Danny to get there in the top three. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. So,
I know for a fact. I would say without conviction or Savannah and Laura,
yeah,
they're
I
gonna be
mean,
there.
it's got to be Savannah and Laura. They're cooking unconscious right now, and in a perfect time to do so. I think that third slot is just a coin toss of Danny and Dan. It could be either one. But for sure, if Savannah and Laura trip at the finish line, I'm gonna be so disappointed.
Oh, I'll
But
be disappointed as well.
yeah, I'll be really disappointed. But I think those two are probably going to be for sure in the final. And then that third one's just up for grabs. So,
And
uh,
and Danny, if Danny would, I think with the two guys, I think if they get out of their own way and just cook good, solid food, they'll be okay. But they're getting in their way. They're overthinking. They're they're pushing versus gliding. Um, so yeah, they need to calm down a little bit and refocus because they're right there at the finish line. They're right there.
yeah, and I think
Right
with
now, I would say right now is anybody's game, but it's not. It's the road goes through Laura and Savannah.
yeah, Savannah or Laura is going to be the winner of this show, um,
Yeah.
unless Dan or Danny can somehow pull it out. And like I said with Dan or Danny, I'm getting confused. Dan, I just think today was a bad day, and he had like I said the case of the yips, and I hope he got it out of his system. Everybody has a bad day, Everybody has a
Yes.
bad day. Not everyone is on their A game 100% of the time. And it's good that he got that out of his system now. So I'm hoping when he hits the finals, he's renewed and revigored and can knock it out. So let's talk about judges table for just a second. Savannah and Laura were the top two, and Savannah was the clear winner. I don't think there was any hesitation or thought behind that. Um,
No.
and Savannah won it with her story, connecting it with her food. The bottom three were Danny, Dan, and Manny. So the ladies were on top. Three men were on the bottom. Danny was bitten by a story about subtlety, and it wasn't subtle. Dan got dinged by the fact that he made a dish reminiscent of Restaurant Wars and was did it worse. And then Manny just undercooked he wasn't consistent with his seafood cook. So finally Manny was eliminated. So we talked about that, but man, I think Dan just slid right through. This would have been the one where I've been complaining about the how the quick fires don't matter and how's Manny still in this. This was clearly one that it, if Dan would have went home, I would have been like, okay, I understand. I'm fine with that because Dan clearly had a bad night. But I think Manny's performances over the last few episodes finally caught up with him, and they're like, look, he's given us bad food over and over again. It's time for him to go. So lucky Dan slipped on through, and Manny finally had to pack his knives and go, as they say. Uh,
Yeah.
so the final four is going to be Danny, Dan, Laura, and Savannah, and I think this is going to be interesting because they said, Kristen said, go home for a few weeks, rest, or she said, go home, rest. We'll see you in a few weeks because the finals are going to be on a cruise ship in Curacao. So everybody was really excited about that. But it looks like and sounds like that there's a few weeks in between this episode when they film this episode and when they're going to film the finals. So I'm hoping like this Danny and Dan kind of shook off the bad day, and they're going to come back onto that cruise ship and cook some really great food and see what happens. But I'm really rooting for Savannah. She's really turned on the Jets in the back half of the season. She's got 3 quickfire wins, 2 elimination challenge wins. Um, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So, what do you
Well,
think?
I think that I'm excited about next week because I watching the preview. My guy is going to be on there. Morimoto is going to be on there.
That's
So
right.
if I don't do anything, I'll watch it just to see what he's going to do. Um, and if you haven't noticed, I'm a huge fan of his. But I think that this is the time where the the afterburners need to come on with Dan and Danny because Savannah, hers been kicked in since what 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Hers been kicked in, and Laura's kicked in after. I mean, came back into the competition. They knew. Danny knew. Whoo, she's back.
Yeah.
She's back, and he know that she ain't nothing to play with. So if the guys don't turn on the afterburners, they're gonna be left behind because these two young ladies are killing it.
Yeah. The only thing I'm afraid of is, this gap of time between when they filmed this episode and whenever they filmed the cruise ship the final two episodes. I'm just concerned that, Savannah has been on a roll, and I'm hoping she didn't cool down during that break. Same with Laura, because, however many weeks there were in between, they get to go home and think about, okay, you're going to be cooking. Usually it's a 4 or 5 course meal for the finals, and they got to cook the meal of their lives, so they have a chance to really get into their head for these next few weeks. So it's an opportunity for the two ladies to cool down. It's an opportunity for the two guys to heat back up, and hopefully we'll have a competitive final.
Well, I think Dan will be we um will have a little boost because he get to see his wife 5 minutes away.
Yeah, right.
Um, I just think I think all four of them should be able to hold on to the ladies, hold on to what they have to move forward, and for Danny and Dan to really refocus on whatever because you know you're going to carousel. So work on your Caribbean flavors. Work on seafood. You know there's gonna be fish there. You know there's gonna be fish.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Do some homework. Do some research. Go back to your restaurant. Play in the kitchen when everybody's gone for the night. Go in the kitchen at 11 o'clock at night. Just play. Bring in some of your other chef friends and play.
Yep.
Work on your plating, work on your timing. Boom, boom, boom. That's what I would do if I had 3 weeks down or a couple of weeks down before I went for a big show like that. I would call my chef friends up and like, hey, listen. And the chef friends I'm calling up, I need them to cook different than I am and be very, 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 very strict on what I'm doing. So boom, 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 boom. Dude, that sucks. Start over again. Look at that plating. Look at this. Look how the temperature is. Look what the color is. Work on it. Work on it. Work on it. Boom. Come back and be like, I'm ready. I'm ready, baby. Let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm
So
looking forward to it.
like I said, if I had that much time down, yeah, and I have a list of chefs that I would call. Like, listen, need you to come to Jacksonville and for at least a weekend and help me with these things that I'm the biggest thing is this when people ask me what's my strengths is I tell them that I know my weaknesses, so which is cool. So now like listen, I know my weaknesses desserts. Let me call in the pastry chef to say, hey, help me come up with something creative in 30 minutes with X amount of pantry. Help me get a seafood chef. Hey, help me with this. And if you've been in this industry long enough, you know who to call.
Yeah.
You know what chef would be like. I got you. So like for me, if it was pastry chefs, and I suck at pastries, seriously. So I would probably call either probably Chef Kimberly Brock Brown for my seafood. I probably call Keith Rose up in Williamton, North Carolina. And then for my plating, oh, I call Lance Cook. You see what I'm saying? So I would
Yeah.
call all these people like, hey, I need a workshop real quick. Like if I
Yeah.
need to go to them, if I need to go to North Carolina, see to be in the kitchen with Keith, if I need to go to North Carolina be with Lance, I'm going there to do that.
Yeah.
That's what you do, and that's when you know you have good chef friends.
Yeah, and you also got to think about ingredients too, right? You got to think about ingredients that are easily substitutable because you don't know what you're going to have when you get there. So, if you try to make a dish that's got an ingredient that's way too specific and you can't substitute easily, you're screwed. So you got to be thinking about
And
flexibility
here's the
too.
other thing too. One of the other, even though we're doing seafood and everything like that, the other type of chef I will call is a Caribbean chef. So, I mean, you call one of them and say, listen, I'm being the Caribbean doing this thing. They're going to throw things at you that you probably never heard of. But if you got a Caribbean chef in your arsenal, they're like, oh yeah, this is from Haiti, this is from Trinidad, this is from, you know what I'm saying? And this
Yeah.
is how we use it. This is the different ways we that goes with chicken, that'll go with fish, that'll go with beef, and in the Caribbean, it's more seafood than there is beef. So, that's what I would do. I would reach out to my friends that do different things. It's like
Yeah.
either I'm coming to y'all or I'm be in the kitchen in Jacksonville.
Can you imagine if they get on that cruise ship in the finals and be like, all right, your final challenge is to create a cruise ship buffet for 150-year-old retirees.
Yeah, yeah, but my thing is this: they have now that that's on the preview, Morimoto's on there. So 9 times out of 10, there's gonna be some tuna.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's gonna be
Yeah.
some sort of sushi challenge or something. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, and so once again, if I know there's going to be sushi, I'm reaching out to my sushi friends that do sushi. Marissa Baggett in Tennessee. She, even though she's a vegan sushi chef, I would reach out to her and say, "Hey, help me with these things." I got some chefs in Seattle that I would call. But that's what you do. If you got downtime and you about to win $150,000, they're gonna be like, "Dude, we got you. Let's do
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Let's do this."
So let's talk about a draft point update for getting close to the end of the season here. So your quick fire winner is Savannah, so 5 points there. Top of the judges table was Laura with 3 points, and the elimination winner was also Savannah for 7 points. And she is our first and only episode suite bonus winner. So we had no there's a point structure in the fantasy draft where if you win both the elimination and the quick fire challenge in the same episode, you get +3 bonus points. And nobody's done it this season. Savannah's the first one to do it right here at the end. So she gets 5 for the quick fire, 7 for the elimination win, and a bonus 3 points for sweeping the
Wow.
episode.
You go,
And
girl.
that's right. And then bottom of the judges table were Danny, and Manny. Wow, sounds like a really bad boy band. Dan, and Manny. So -2 each for all three of those. So for the episode totals, Team Southern Passion Lounge, you get 12 points with your bonus there. And then Team Eat Your Content, me, I get -2 because Dan was the only person left on my team and he was on the bottom of the judges table. So he got me -2 points. So for the
Wow.
show totals to date, you have 118 points and I have 41. So safe to say I am out of this challenge mathematically. Congratulations on winning Top Chef Season 21's fantasy draft.
Awesome. Wow.
So with 2 episodes left to go, you have pulled off ahead that I can't even see your tail lights. So that's where we stand
Now,
right now.
I find it interesting how we chose our chefs. Neither one of them is wrong, but for me, I had to trust the culture versus trusting their um
Their
their
CV.
resume. Yeah. So I mean, because here's the thing, I know a lot of chefs that are amazing chefs, but they've never been a James Beard Award winner, never been a James Beard nominee, none of that stuff. And I will put them up against those guys. And amazing food, amazing food. So that's why your resume, I have to see you cook. I have to see your passion. I have to see other things besides what your resume says
Yep.
and
Yep.
your conversation, all that stuff there, because that plays into a lot of things.
Yeah.
So like I can give you a resume that tell you I'm the best mechanic in the state of Florida until I fix your car.
Yeah. And then I need to ask, so was your dad a mechanic? Was your uncle a mechanic? Did you come from
Yeah.
a family of mechanics? That's the next question on the list there. So,
Yeah.
well, we did it. We got 2 episodes left. The last 2 episodes are going to be on a cruise ship. So we're going to kind of see where they go and how they do. But so looking forward to talking about that next week. So what do you got going on over the next couple of weeks that people need to be aware of?
Man, listen, think I've stumbled upon an amazing thing here. So I am now the executive chef of the Boys and Girls Club in Jacksonville on 10th and Liberty. And what makes that so amazing and mind-boggling is it's the same club I went to as a kid. So me and my brothers went to this club as a kid when I was 6 years old. Now I come back as their executive chef,
That's great.
and I get to teach the kids about how to cook, about the industry. So I have guest chefs coming in to talk to the kids. We'll be taking field trips to local farms. We'll be using a lot of local produce, product, the whole 9 yards, and I'm excited about that. We'll be doing an event at the that's coming up. We'll be doing a lot of tasting. So follow me on Instagram at Chef Amadeus, my website at chefamadeus.net, Facebook fans of Chef Amadeus, because when we do these things with the kids, we're going to open up to the public, and you'll be more than um, welcome to come and check it out when we do a lot of fun things. So yeah, so stick around with that one. So I'll be working with kids, which I'm so excited about. You have no idea. At the same place I grew up in. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm kind of
that's great. I mean, the Boys and Girls Club do some great work. So support them in your local
yep.
community there, and it's got to be great for you to be an alumni of the Boys and Girls Club and to come back
Oh,
and
dude,
serve where you
it's
were
crazy.
served and kind
Yes,
of pay that
yes,
back, right?
yes. Yeah, so like I say, we're going to be doing a lot of community work. Well, I always have done community work, but now I think I'm in a position where I can help these kids, their parents, and just give back to the community. And it's just amazing. I'm giddy. I'm like Christmas morning right now.
Yeah,
So
awesome,
yeah, that's where I'll be at.
awesome. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in. Just another reminder to follow me on socials at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also make sure to like and follow, subscribe on your podcast player of choice and on YouTube for upcoming episodes for us finishing up the rest of Top Chef season 21 and also going to be recapping the Bear season 3. So make sure you tune in for that. Chef, thank you so much for your time again and look forward to seeing you next week.
I look forward to being here.